Okay.
All right. I think we're live. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, the second in our series on how to use IBM Bob to help create applications, UIs, etc., for our business automation platform, BAMOE. My name is Phil Simpson. I'm the program director for Workflow here at IBM. And I'm delighted to be joined by friends at Blue Polaris, James, Jared, Aditya, who are going to take us through some very exciting demos with Bob and how we can use AI to generate artifacts for our automation platform. Before we get started, if you do have questions, feel free to enter them into, I think there's a Q&A button or a chat button. We're going to look at, we'll monitor both of those. So if you have questions, feel free to enter them into either of those, and we will try to leave time at the end of the webinar to go through questions. And some of us may be able to respond in real time if you ask a question there as well. All right, so let's get started. Let's go to the next slide. I just want to take a couple of minutes to introduce or reintroduce BAMOE for those of you that might not be familiar with this product. So Business Automation Manager Open Editions is a business automation platform. It's a development platform for our clients to build applications that automate business operations. So typically that would be business processes, workflows, and business decisions. Has a long history. It started out in life at Red Hat and has moved through various name changes and iterations before ultimately moving to IBM and becoming what we refer to as BAMOE, Business Automation Manager Open Editions. And I've one next slide just to quickly illustrate what you get with BAMOE, the contents of the offering, just so you get some context, I think, for the demonstrations and so on that you're going to see next. But fundamentally, like all business automation platforms, BAMOE has two parts to it. There's a development side and a runtime side. The development side is the tooling and the repository where you create the models that describe your business, describe your organizational processes, your business decisions, and so on. And you're using languages like BPMN and DMN, which are standard graphical representations for business processes and business decisions. And I think in the demos we'll maybe see some examples of those. But the basic concept is you build a set of models that you maintain within a source code control system, a Git repository that typically most organizations would have, using the tooling that we provide with BAMOE. And we provide both a standalone application called Canvas, which contains all the editing tools, as well as plugins for VS Code, because, as I mentioned, BAMOE is a development platform. Many of our users work within that IDE directly and want to be able to access the editors directly from within VS Code, and that we provide as well. Once you've created your application, you can deploy it for execution into a runtime. Typically, the runtime is a Kubernetes environment. So typically, your build pipeline will create container images, which you can deploy to the runtime. And those images are executables that natively execute the workflows and the decisions that you've defined in your model. So you can build an application that processes claims, for example, moves claims through the organization according to the workflow that you've defined, makes decisions about claims, and so on. Those become container images, which can be deployed on Kubernetes. And there we can use all the power of Kubernetes to scale the application up and down and so on. So that at a very high level is an overview of BAMOE. What we're going to see today is really focus more on the development side. So we're looking at how we can use AI and particularly how we could use IBM Bob as a development environment and have AI build us some of these artifacts that are used to create these applications. One particularly important thing to understand is that IBM Bob is itself based on VS Code. So the plugins that we provide for VS Code actually plug directly into IBM Bob as well. So it makes it very easy to start using Bob with BAMOE. And so with that introduction, I would like to turn over to James, who's going to take us through the work that they've done and the demos that they prepared for us today. So James.
All right, thanks, Phil. Phil's talking obviously here about BAMOE and how you can use BAMOE to modernize your operations and be a platform for modern operations. And obviously, AI is a key part of this. We talk a lot about how to modernize work with AI. And so I just want to walk you through sort of how we see this. So, many organizations, if they haven't applied automation already, have this sort of mess of things going on. They have people doing things, they have legacy code, they have all sorts of bits and pieces. And if they want to move that to a modern AI-enabled framework, there's generally sort of two bits to that. The first bit is, how do I get to a set of models, blueprints that represent how I want to do business? Process models in BPMN, decision models in DMN, so that I can clearly articulate, here's how I run my work, here's how I make my decisions. And what we see is that there's obviously traditionally a lot of modeling work done by analysts and process and decision modelers. And there's an increasing focus on, can we use AI as a set of modeling agents that will help us create these models? And once I've got these models and I run them in BAMOE and I put them into the process and decision execution environments, obviously I can then also modernize the experience of working with those things. BAMOE is a bring your own UI kind of environment. And so being able to add AI to those user interfaces, build chatbot kinds of interfaces, use Bob to generate custom UIs for interacting with the environment, explaining the decisions that BAMOE makes. All of these things are great use cases for AI. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we did another webinar where we really focused on this right-hand end. How do you improve the user experience for end users and for people managing the environment using Bob to build better UIs, using Orchestrate to provide better UIs? So that's a recording you have access to, but that was sort of the last focus. This week, we're going to really focus on the left-hand side here. What does it mean to use these agents, AI agents, to bring you from your current mess to a set of blueprints that you can execute? So let's walk through that a little bit so you get a sense of what we're going to show you in the demo. So here's the environment Phil was just showing you, the standard BAMOE environment. And if you're like most organizations, what you have to start with is generally a big pile of policy documents and standard operating procedures and guidelines, and maybe you have like pictures of processes and so on. And if you've been using BAMOE or rules for any length of time, you probably also have legacy DRL. The process part of BAMOE has been using BPMN a long time, but the legacy sort of rules product and the sort of previous versions of Red Hat Decision Manager use DRL. So you may well have existing decisions documented using DRL. So that's where you want to start. And what you want to get to is this modern BAMOE environment using process and decision models. So what we have found is there's a number of use cases in here for AI. So first of all, we use Bob a lot. We found that while you can load regulations, big policy documents directly into AI, often it's better to sort of trawl through them and focus them a little bit. So you might have a regulation, for instance, that talks about all sorts of benefits, but you only want to deal with a certain kind of benefits. You might have a whole underwriting manual that talks about all sorts of different different kinds of policies, but you're really only working on your commercial policies today. So you can use Bob, indeed any AI, to sort of trawl through all this documentation and produce a document which says, here are all the requirements I can find for this particular focus area. Now, having done that, now you've got these more focused requirements, and if you've been using DRL, so legacy DRL, and what you need is models. And what we have found is that you can use Bob to do a lot of that. Bob is really good at code-oriented things. It's really good at extracting decision models from DRL. We've also found that we can extract process models from certain things, but we've also invested as Blue Polaris in a product we call Jenny, that is an extension to one of our modeling tools, really focused on how do you build blueprints. Because what we're trying to do here is not, Bob's really good at working with code, so we don't need to do anything about the code side of things. But when it comes to creating these blueprints, creating an architectural view, if you like, of these systems, we found there are some things we can extend it with. So we've extended Bob, added some new capabilities to really make it sort of better at building some of these models when it comes to certain kinds of inputs. So if you've got an image of a Miro board or something, or you've got certain kinds of SOPs and policy documents, some of those we can extend and improve its ability to generate models from it. So now we use these tools together and we can generate models. We can generate DMN models and BPMN models. And generally, those models are not going to be finished, right? They're going to need review with the business. They're going to need approval. And so you need somewhere you can look at those. And so what we find is that it's good to have a modeling tool, a requirements tool, sort of before you start putting them into your development environment. As Phil said, if you're just trying to work with these models in a development environment, BAMOE has everything you need. But if you're trying to review them with a non-technical user, have conversations about the business intent, you might want to think about other tools to help you. So BlueWorks Live, IBM's BPMN tool, is a great place to do the process modeling. We have a tool called Decisions First Modeler focused on decision model requirements. So you can review these models in these modeling tools, or indeed other modeling tools, so you can get agreement with your business partners that these are in fact the blueprints that you need. And once you've done that, you can load those into BAMOE. But what we found is that requirements models do not generally execute out of the gate. They're requirements models. They're not implementation models. There's a set of additional data, that refinements and additional data that you need to make to those models before you can execute them in BAMOE. And so what we've been doing is using Bob for that stage too. So not only are we using Bob to get the initial models, but once you've reviewed the models, then Bob can help you resolve any remaining issues, add the additional data that you need so that you get executable BAMOE models out at the end of the process. So that's what we're going to show you in the demo. We're going to show you how you can extract models from these sort of source documents and DRL. We're going to show you what those models look like. Obviously, we're not going to do a formal review of them. We're just going to show them to you. And then we're going to show you how you can use Bob to clean them up and get them into BAMOE. Some of these things we'll be showing you how to kick it off. We won't wait for it to finish because we want to get done in a reasonable time. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand over to Aditya for the demo. Aditya, over to you.
Thank you, James. So here, good morning and good evening. So today we'll demonstrate these how AI-assisted tools such as we have a Bob, and as James said that we have a decision first modeler that can accelerate our creation, correction, and migration of decision and process models into a BAMOE. So this demonstration will have two parts of it. First, we'll be converting your business rules, which is in DRL, into a DMN model. And also the SOP documents, what you have, will convert that into a DMN. So that's on the decision side. And we'll be, again, converting our SOP document into an executable BPMN format. And we'll be using that as a BlueWorks Live and into a BAMOE to import it. So this will be the flow of execution. So first, we'll start with the DMN flow, which is for our decision model and notation. We'll begin with the Bob. In this example, we already have an existing DRL file. So here we have a rule language files where all the rules have been written in when then format. If you see that, it's all like if when this and that. So we will be using this file and telling Bob that convert that particular file into a DMN format so that it can be readable and that can be imported into BAMOE once it generates the DMN. Okay, so to start with that one, I'll be testing a prompt over here. So this is Bob. Inside the Bob, I have a DRL file, and here we can tell Bob for the task. So as you see here, this is my prompt that your experience software architecture, floating rules, and DRL syntax. And I'm giving a file name, which is the insurance premium discount and DRL file. And also I'm telling him to analyze DRL before writing to DMN. So we have some standards and protocols for the DMN, right? So we are telling that identify the fact types, identify each rules, also the priority, the field, expression, context, everything. And with that one, we'll execute that. And here, Bob will start reading this particular DRL file and start converting into DMN. So in between that, it will ask for our approval that it has to read files and some of the tasks where it needs some your system permission. So we give that one and it starts analyzing that. So now what you have seen is like it's going through this particular file and it started analyzing. So here is a DRL analysis summary. So it classifies what are the different levels. We have L1, L2, L3, and L4. What are the rules in that one? Logics. So it tries to extract the information out of this DRL and try to put it into a daemon format. Okay. Then it starts structuring into your data. So what are the data required for this particular DMN? So we'll require driver, vehicle, policy application. Then what could be the enumerated swings that will be possible? So based on this code, okay, we can have customer loyalty tag as a enumeration where we can add a different value. It takes that one And with that, now it start converting that. So wherever it's possible, it converts that into a decision table. Then wherever we'll have, it will convert to a field expression. Now, this particular task takes 4 to 5 minutes. Okay. So at the back end, as we are seeing, it's just field writing and executing that. So meanwhile, what we will do is that we have our tool, which is a decision first modeler. We call it as a Genie. And we'll be using that to convert a SOP document into a DMN format as well. So we have a different ways of converting that into DMN. The one what we are showing is with your legacy code or the rules, DRL rules, and we can use a SOP document as well. So decision first modeler Genie provides another approach for generating decision model. So instead of starting with your technical rules, it analyzes the business documents. So let me show you that document. So here is your SOP document, and in that you'll have different rules. I can say SOPs, all the related materials. So you can use this document, and then the platform will identify the decision points, business condition, what would be the input data, expected outcome, and then it will transform into a DMN model. This is particularly valuable because many organizations still maintain their business rules in the documents. Also, we have a spreadsheets and then operational procedure. So AI-assisted extraction can significantly reduce the time required to restore and model those rules. So I'll log into our decision first modeler and I'll use this particular SOP document. All right. So here we are into a decision first modeler we call as a Genie. And now here we get a project and tab. We'll use the file. So I'm going into my particular file using this SOP. I'll click on open and then we'll use our Blue Polaris AI models to improve. Now, what it really does, it like it goes through that document, tries to extract all the information that could be your DMN and what are the inputs, what are the decisions, sub-decision. So first level, it will try to extract the models out of it. So it will create your EID diagram, which is entity relationship diagram, where it denotes like how the entities and relationship works across that particular DMN file. What could be the possible of inputs, output value, as we have seen, and then it will generate a particular ERD diagram. And based on that ERD, it will generate a DMN. So once we see that, okay, all the objects and values what we see based on the extracted information looks good, we can generate that into a DMN. So as you see over here, it generated an ERD where we can see a driver, have driver age, fault at accident count, policy count, and vehicle details, auto insurance application details, right? So we can verify this one. We can see from where it came from the source. So basically from SOP document, if we have to make some changes, we can do that and then we can submit. So what it's doing now, based on that SOP document and ERD generated, now it's generating a DMN out of it. So we'll see the set of inputs, sub-decision, and decision, and that will be your decision model notation file. So it will take just a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, I'll switch to Bob because many times we have to approve some task. So here I'm approving the task and it's working, the backend. Let's go to Janie. Yeah, meanwhile, as you see over here, it has generated the DMN from SOP document. And as you see, it added all the details like what are your inputs, drivers, vehicles. Then it added the knowledge sources also from where it is coming. And as you see here, if I click on this particular tab, it shows me the decisions table as well. So based on my approval decision and final premium, whether it's a policy is getting issued or we are escalating or routing to the underwriter. So all those we can see. And also if we just jump to the source, it will point to from where it is coming. So recommendation rules. So based on this particular information, it extracted that and created rule out of it, which is a decision table. So you can see all these processes over here. Everything will be having a decision table. Based on that, some of them will be a field language expression, and that will be a DMP. So this is how we use our decision first modeler and Genie, we call it as a Genie, for transforming your SOP documents, standard procedures, policy document, underwriting guidelines, and turn that into a DMN. So you will validate everything over here, whether my decision looks good, whether my inputs and the sources, everything is fine. So this tool will help you to make the refinements into your model, and then you can export this particular model into a DMN format that can be imported into a BAMOE. Let's go back to the here. Now, as this one is generating a DMN file, so if you see that one, it already started creating a DMN file and is writing at the back end. It added a data type, an editor, also the classification. So same prompt we have used here, and as you see, we have the all the lines what we have tested. It created the same level of labels, data layers, also data types and everything, and it generated a DMN. So I'll be showing you that DMN because it's still running and we have a time limitation. So this is just this one. So this is what DMN it has generated from the DRL file. So what you have seen from SAP document, it generates similarly because let's say that your DRL is generated from your SOP document and you have that one preserved. So we have used SOP as well as DRL, and with different ways we can generate that. And similarly, you can see here we have a decision tables with all those rows and what are the decision out of it. Again, if I go here, final premium, and then we have all the data types. So it is generated now. So this particular generated DMN file is ready to import, but there will be some issues because now we have to see whether whatever the data types we have created, some of the rules of field expression can be supported into a BAMOE. We can directly import that or not. So there are possibilities that we might encounter some errors. So what I'll try to do is like I'll import this and will generate the errors from it. All right. I'm going to the BAMOE canvas here, and here I'll select the files now. So let me go to that particular file which is generated, which is our this particular DMN file. I'll click on this one, and now it opens the same file into a BAMOE canvas. So we are using a canvas where we can see same DMN over here, and everything has been included. So all the data types in editor, you can see all those decisions. But again, this is generated from DRL, and while executing, you might encounter some problems. So here, as you see, here we can see some errors in the validation. So the way what we are saying is error compiling field expression for approval outcome. Then here also overlapping rules. So we are seeing this kind of errors and warnings as well over here in this particular DMN file. And to resolve this issue, Bob will be use the DMN file altogether, and then we can give these errors as well. So whatever the errors we have seen, that one we can capture it from here and tell Bob to fix those errors. So Bob will analyze the file, corrects the compatibility problems, clean up the XML, and fixes the expressions, fields, everything of that, and update that particular DMN file. So if I go back again here, and if we just check through this one. So this is a summary. What we have generated first is DMN, and then after that we have given a next prompt that analyze the attached DMN file, fix all the error, preventing it from imported, and execute in BAMOE. Complete correctness in XML file. A brief summary of changes is the file must be import, validate, build, and execute without any errors. And also I've given some example of also remove the below errors what we have seen. So decision policy, hit policy is overlap, then whatever the overlap errors what we have seen. And then again, it reads that. So it reads that particular DMN file, and you can see that the problem. So DMN 1.6 OMG namespace not supported by BAMOE, changes in all the namespaces. So it makes all the changes with that IDs with hyphen, and then it created a new file out of it. Okay, so I've imported that and again got error, so we can give that error and it refines that particular file and try to resolve. Okay, so whatever the files what we have here is in the converted. So DMN will be same, whatever inputs and the decisions you will see, but at the back end, the PID policies, the XML refinements and support types, everything has been validated and changed by BOM. So what we will do is, like, as this prompt we have already given and it generated, let's go to BAMOE again. And here we can see that there are errors to this particular DMN file. So we'll be using the one which is generated, so which is a converted file. So this is a DMN file again. And if I just use this one, here we are just seeing the validation. There are zero evaluation errors, and validation is also it's saying that it finished with no message reported. So there are no errors in this particular file. Now, to validate this one and it's working, what we can do is, like, we get a one tab over here in this particular BAMOE canvas, where we can give you the set of inputs and it generates the output based on that. So on this left-hand side, this is a form where you can fill in all the details. Either it supports the Excel file or you can just fill in this form. So as you see, we can give the details, the driver age, fault accidents in 5 years, years license, policy count with the company, then the vehicle related details, which is a safety rating, vehicle age, and the best premium of it. So it goes through all these sub-decision and decisions and generate the response. So here we can trace it our all the decisions. So for the driver's age, it's a young. So if we go for the driver's age here we can see a different decision tables, and it goes through that one. Driver age based on that, then driver safety tier, and it goes through that and it gives us the final decision. So if you go for underwriting recommendation, we have three sets of output from here. So it says issue policy and the review policy is standard. If it is the outcome is manual review and the final premium is greater than 1.3, then escalate to the senior underwriter or route to the underwriter. So in this particular case, whatever the inputs we have seen, the vehicle safety tire is at higher risk, and the approval outcome is a manual review. So that is leading to the underwriting decision, which is high, and escalate to the senior underwriter. So if we just change the set of inputs, it will change that one. So let's try that one. So here I'll give the age, fault at accident is 1, years 3, policy count 0, vehicle safety rating, I'll give it as a 5, and vehicle age is a 5. I'll keep premium same. As you see here again, with the set of inputs now, we can see that it has changed its decision, and now it says the policy is standard and issue policy. Vehicle safety tier is standard, approval outcome is auto approve. So what we have seen over here is, like, we have turned our DRL files into a DMN file, as well as your SOP documents into your DMN files. We have used Bob to fix those errors, whatever we have seen once we imported into BAMOE, and then we regenerated that file or we updated that file. We re-imported that, we run through the set of inputs, and with that we can see that that particular DMN file is running and it's executable. Now, so that particular decision, what we have seen, underwriting recommendation, is further available for your deployment, and that can be already validated. So this is how we have used the existing DRL SOP to turn into a DMN and use Bobs to do the further task and enhancement to that one. Also, with that, once we have that, we have told Bob to generate a test scenario. So it can generate test scenarios for you as well. So again, going back to the history of this one, once we get all the errors and we tell Bob to fix, we tell him that generate a test scenario for given DMN file. So now it starts analyzing through this. So what are the 6 inputs? So I have these 6 inputs. I have a 5 binary classification boundary. So it finds the boundary case condition as well. So boundary values, and it creates a test scenario file. So as you see, it created this particular nice HTML file where once you open it, let me try to open this one. You can see that your test scenario file for that particular DMN. Now with the set of inputs, it captured the boundary value maps, then it did the classification via groups, group level 1, group level 2, where 1 is for the boundary test cases, second for the accumulation. So you can use the set of inputs and validate your final outcome and underwriting decision. So based on this value, whether it goes to auto approve an issue policy or the manual review and escalate to senior underwriter. So all these what we have seen over here is being again used under your BAMOE for further test. And this is how this particular file has been generated. So it helps to generate your test scenario file. we have done all the complete migration from DRL to DMN, resolved all these errors, generated test suite, and we can validate that. So with this one, your one flow is completed, and you can say that, okay, now this particular DMN is working in BAMOE, and now it's ready to execute. All right. So I'll just take a pause over here, and then we'll start with our second flow, which is for the BPMN, which is for workflows.
Thanks, Aditya. I did want to remind folks, post any questions that you might have in the Q&A. We tested prior to the start, and some people were able to access Q&A and some weren't. If you're not, just please post any questions in chat, and we'll make sure we get everything answered.
Thank you, John. So now we'll move to BPN portion of demonstration. Again, in this example, we have SOP document, which is describing your business processes. So let's see that business process document, what we have. So here we can see that this is our SOP document where we have a purpose, scopes, roles involved, key terms, system, supporting the process, overview. So again, this is your procedural document. And what we will do is rather than manually reading the document, and creating each activity, gateway, events, and sequential flow, we'll be using BOM to generate an initial BPMN model. So again, the ask will be the same that you have already your SOP document where it's all your business processes and flows has been documented. And now we need to turn that into workflows and executable BPMN model we can do with the BOM. So going back to this one, we have that particular SOP file document, as you see here, imported already into my workspace. And now, again, I have already given that prompt again because it takes time, 5 minutes to generate that, but let me show you that particular form. So this keeps the history of that. So I've executed this just before the call, and then these are all the tasks what we have seen is generated by the BOM. So let's go for a BPMN piece. So once we finish with DMN and we say that, okay, the decision are for the manual review and manual review goes to the underwriting process. So from there, we picks for the workflows. Once it goes for the manual review, underwriters picks that one and do the further decision. And that particular SOP document will help to capture all the workflows, all the points, tasks, and turn that into a BPMN. So again, here I have given a prompt to BOM to read the BPN file. So I'm saying, and you are experienced process analyst, you have taken training in process modeling and BPMN, understand through and have no experience using specially, take the auto insurance underwriting SOP PDF file, what we have, developed a BPMN format, make sure that each one have one node, details like system, work time, everything. And it starts analyzing that. So first, it again tries to capture the swim lanes, how many lanes we can have. One lane for the applicant, then for underwriting analyst, decision engine, underwriter, senior underwriter. So as you have seen in decision, so if we are not issuing a policy, it goes to a underwriter and a senior underwriter. It goes to true. So again, with that one in the SOP document, when it goes to the underwriter, what particular task is assigned to that and what are the action he takes. It's been documented in that SOP, and again, senior underwriter extracted that and added a swim lane for it. Then it designs the flow design. So it starts, submit application, register applicant, verify completeness. So it does all the states and then model it out. So lane one, what is the role for it? Applicant can be external, intake analyst, register, verify the request, then underwriting decision, which is under the BAMOE. So underwriter will take decision whether again it's to be approved based on the manual review. That is fully automated in DMN execution. So with that again, with this one, it generates a BPMN file. So it has generated this particular BPMN file, auto insurance underwriter. So as you see here, it has all those lanes what we have seen, senior underwriter, writer. Then we have automation engine where it goes for automated decision, whether it can be auto-approved manual review based on that policy, what we have seen in DMA, basically a decision. And again, we can see the start application. So at this moment, it generated a BPMN, but it is incomplete because we have not checked the validness of it, whether it has added all the data, stars, in-out parameter, it just generated that, and you can see that some of the refinement and rework is required. So even if I click on this one, and if I try to see, it shows that auto insurance writing process, But in the process data, we don't see anything. It's empty again in advance. So it generated a basic BPMN from that, but it took all those your decisions, workflows, and everything, and lay out that into a BPM. So next, what we can do is based on this particular file, we can tell the Bob that can you please align all the inputs, variables in out for files. So as you see, the next prompt what we have given is analyze then update the generated BPMN file. And then we are saying that for the application, we require this particular main details. Format and the cleanup BPMN, then also preserve its existing process logic, main BPM executable. And also we are saying that check the correctness of XML file, generate a brief summary of the changes, and the final file must be import, open, validate, and build, execute in BAMOE without any errors. So we are telling that. So again, it starts analyzing that particular file. So we can give that prompt over here and it starts. So let's go to my different one. And here I'll submit the prompt again for BPMN. So what we have done there. So DMN here, as you see that that task is completed, again, we are generating the BPMN task. So it's start analyzing and starts generating. So what I'm seeing in the other window, it starts doing the task. Okay, so once we tell that check the correctness, add the validate data and add all the points, it again reads everything and starts adding the details and update that particular BPMN. So goal here, as you see, the building complete BME auto insurance underwriting demonstration, converting rules and DMN, also BPM process from SOP and preserve that information. So based on that, again, as you see that we have this one, version 1 is created. Again, the version 2, which is converted and can added with the data and everything prompts we have given is over here. And if I click on here, I can see that under the properties, now under the process data, all the data process variable is mapped with its data type. So in our earlier diagram, what we have seen here, this particular data was missing. And we were not able to import that because it's just that it created a BPMN, but it not added or the data has not added the reference and scripts and everything. So with that one, we have given and we prompted and told Bob to make it executable, and it added all the details, and we have it here in the process data. So once we validate everything, okay, my BPM generated all the data, we can use now different tools. So as James mentioned, before putting into a development environment, we can check the correctness, validation. So if you have to fix anything, we can use some tools. So we have BlueWorks Live where we can import this particular BPMN, validate, do the correctness, and if we want to change anything, we can do that one. So we can take this particular file and then import that into a BlueWorks Live. So let me get into the BlueWorks Live and show you that one. Yeah. So currently we are into the BlueWorks Live, and here we have imported. So we get an import option to import the BPMN file, and the same file what we have seen generated by Bob, we have imported here. And you can see that it preserves all the information. We have the same swim lanes, all the tasks, and then the details around that. So all those you can see over here. You can validate the completeness of this particular thing. And also, if you want to make some changes, so if you want to change the node or the direction of it, like based on the missing information, we can do that. So after importing basically into a BWL, we can do the typical refinements. That is like a validation issues, adjusting sequence flow. Then we have a process variable. So if anything is missing, we can define that, adding a task or output objects, configuring data associated with, or mapping variables. So that all we can do that one. And also here we get like a switch to the modern view. What we get is what we see in BAMOE, same we get that particular view. So you can check all the correctness of this one, and then with the help of Bob, we have helped to correct and enhance this model. Now, once everything looks good and we can see that all information is there, data is there, I can import that particular DMN, PPMN file into a BAMOE. So we can export put this particular model from here, BPMN file, or we can use the one which Bob generated. And again, we can import that into a BAMOE canvas. So let's go there. So once coming back over here, as you see that we get an import option. So whatever the auto insurance workflow file we have, so same what we have seen in BlueWorks Live, as you see here, all the lanes, submit application to the end application, same we have it BAMOE. And you can again see over here all the details. It starts with the submit application, and then at the last, it goes for the underwriting decision, whether it can be approved or based on that decision, and it defines that. And here as well, we can see all the data mappings. So in the first draft, what we have seen, it generated a BPM model without any variables in it. Now we have told Bob to add that. And once we import that into a BAMOE canvas, we can see all these details. So all your details related to that particular form. So your vehicle age, premium, it adds the data type to it. And again, if I click on any of this, let's say when we start the application, we can see the data mapping over here. It's an application form, then entry and exit, we can have it, reassignment, and then metadata associated with it. So submit application. So this is your particular BPMN file, which is being generated from your SOP document. And we have done the validation, correctness, and everything, and imported that into your modeling tool, which can be a BlueWorks Live, and then it can be imported into your development environment, which is in BAMOE. And with that also, if you have to test it and see how it works and behave with Bob, what we can do is like we can tell Bob to generate a UI for that particular BPMN file. So the last step would be once the BPMN looks good, all the data and validation mapping is there, we can tell Bob to generate a UI. So as you see, we have user prompt using BPMN file, please create it. So this is a basic UI what we have created around UI with all required fields using BPMN file, use this particular blue Polaris logo, and then add HTML, CSS styling, everything. So it started reading that BPMN file. Also, what are the set of inputs? Are we calling a decision? If we are calling decision, what are the key points? So it analyzes everything, and then it starts maps into the UI and generates that HTML file. So this is how this HTML file is being generated. And once we open that file, this will look like this. So this is a quick UI which we have generated from BPMN process, and also the information what we have for your DMN for decision. And then here it captures all the information. So for applicant information, what are details required is applicant full name, license number, description, driver profile, which is age, year licensed, fault, accidents, policies, vehicle profile. As you see here, it has given the safety rating as well with a very nice UI. Pricing, and based on that, this is computed by a decision engine. And once we get it, okay, so underwriter sees that it goes for a manual review, he can validate the information based on that, and he can take a decision based on that. Okay, all the data has been present and validate, or no missing or inconsistent information, and route again for the missing information, and then underwriting decision. So everything we can check over here, and this particular UI can be a underwriter UI where he can validate this particular decision, take a decision, and the final underwriting decision can be approved and declined, and then we can submit that. So this is on the BPMN side. So this particular demonstration, what we have seen is like how the AI assisted tool, which is a Bob and then decision first model Genie, can support both decision and process modernization. For DMN, we demonstrated how we have used DRL and SOP documents that are converted into your decision model, and also SOP document that are converted into your workflows model, BPMN model. Then we have corrected the DMN model and BPMN model for compatibility, importment, and the test, which can be supported into a BAMOE. And then we have generated the test scenarios as well as the UI. So this is how you can leverage the Bob and different assistants. So as I said, that Genie to create your DMN, BPMN, and leverage your existing modernization old code to modernize that one.
All right. Thanks very much, Aditya.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're ready for questions here. So I'll go ahead and put my contact and Phil's contact up. So if you want to follow up afterwards, you're welcome to. And hand it over to John to coordinate our Q&A here. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in, and we'll see how many we can get answered.
Thank you, sir. And again, if you're having problems with the Q&A, it seemed like it was a 50-50 thing before start, then just throw a question in the chat. But I've got one question, James. It looks like a two-part. What type of information can be used to generate BPMN or DMN for use in BAMOE, and does it need to be in a specific format? I don't know, Jared, is that one that I can throw on you?
Yeah, happy to answer that. For those of you that have been following Blue Polaris for a while, you'll know that we've been doing this for a couple of years now on the BPMN and DMN side, and of course now with IBM Bob, being able to turn that into executable code is super exciting, because we're now making it much more efficient and much faster to get things to market, which was always a problem with some of the open source stuff because it was so technical. But we can avoid some of that churn now. In terms of what's required, it's really any type of documentation, which means PDFs, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents. It could even be images, photographs, and even audio. That's something we're doing now, where you could take a transcript or a recording and use that to describe the process or the decision. It's also ideal to have multiple sources of information. So think about having an SOP plus maybe a detailed design document, along with maybe a picture of a whiteboard with sticky notes on it. Taking a combination of information, it seems to make it much more accurate, and there's less back and forth with the data. So the answer is it can be really any type of information, anything that describes the process or decision, and it can be any format. So anything that can be read by an AI vision or text model.
Yeah, and just to add to that, John, one of the things we found, I completely want to sort of reiterate what Darren said at the end there. We found, particularly with DMN, when we're generating it from code, it's really useful to also be able to generate a model from, if you like, the source materials the code is supposed to represent, because we find that we get a more business-friendly decision model from the documentation, but often there are fixes and patches that are only in the code. The document was never updated. So that sort of combo really gives you a really good head start on getting the decisioning done, just as it does in the process. So that's sort of, one of the things we find compelling about bringing all these things into decision and process models is that, if you like, the output is the same, whether you're starting with code, whether you're starting with documents, whether you're starting with images. They all come together in this set of blueprints that you can then review and approve and model and finish modeling out. And that's a very exciting way to approach modernization. So.
Very good. Hope that answered things. There's one more just to spread things out. Maybe Debbie, I can send this one to you. For orgs that are using spreadsheets, documentation for custom code and business logic, is there a recommended path for moving forward to BPMN or DMN?
Hello. Yes.
Most orgs are probably doing the spreadsheet stuff now, but yeah, is there a recommended path for moving?
Thanks, John. Yes. So the answer to that is the usual recommended approach is to start by separating process logic from decision logic. That would be the step one. And then for workflows, existing business process documented in Word documents, SOPs, sometimes Visio diagrams or custom application workflows are typically good candidates to be modeled as BPMN processes. For on the decision side, business policies, eligibility criteria, pricing rules, approvals, risk scores, and other decision-heavy logic found in, as you said, rightly said, spreadsheets, Excel decision tables, or application code are very good candidates for DMN decisions. So yes, rather than attempting for organizations who are yet to make that big jump, rather than attempting that big bang migration. Organizations usually start with a high value process or decision area, model the current state and validate with their stakeholders, and then incrementally uh, replace embedded business logic with reusable DMN services. So this approach is very good for improving transparency, business ownership, testing, and governance, while also at the same time going live. So in practice, BPMN and DMN work best together, that we know, and BPMN orchestrates the business flow while DMN externalizes and manages the decisions that drive that flow. So yeah, that's my answer to that. Thanks, John.
Okay, very good. I'm not seeing. I see one more come in. If we're already using BAMOE today, can we use it with Bob? If we already have BAMOE, can we use it with Bob today, or do we need to wait for a future release? That sounds like a Phil question.
Yeah, I can answer that. Well, in fact, as you saw in the demo today, right? You AD just showed using Bob and the latest, the current release of BAMOE, and absolutely, as I mentioned earlier, because it's all VS Code at the end of the day, you can use Bob. You can bring in the editing tools into Bob's window and prompt Bob to go create things for you, and that all works very well today. The only thing I would say is that obviously there's a fair amount of prompt engineering going on here, right? You have to know how to provide the context that Bob needs to understand BPMN and DMN and so on. There's a lot of that is still somewhat on the user to know how to phrase the prompt, and how to provide all that, and what context to provide to get the result you're looking for. That's something that I think we will be looking into more in future releases. That Bob has these mechanisms for specifying context. There are things called Bob modes. There are skills that we can provide for Bob, and so I think what we will be looking at is how can we provide predefined skills, predefined Bob modes that remove the need for the user to specify all that context and just simply say, hey, here's an SOP diagram, please go create a BPMN file or work in BAMOE, without having to provide all that context background for Bob, and know that you'll get a good result. So that's something we can expect in the future, but certainly you absolutely can use it today with the current release.
And just to add to what Phil said, I mean, this area of Bob skills is an area we're working. As you can see, we have a lot of experience building these models, and making that easy to do from Bob is one of the things that's clearly on our radar. As Phil said, how do you take that experience and make it available as Bob skills and templates and so on? And so that's an area we're working on. One of our observations as people who build a lot of these models from scratch for new requirements is that it's quite easy to get a technically accurate model that isn't a model any modeler would ever build. So syntactically correct, but not terribly helpful. There's a degree of analysis skills that can be useful too. And to Phil's point, this is an area where sort of IT teams need to sort of get out there a little bit and talk to people who are not just in the IT department and say, here's a model, what do you think? And explain how the model works, and sort of try and engage people who can validate that it has the right business intent, not just that it's syntactically correct and executes in BAMOE, right? So, there's an interesting sort of mix of things going on here, but Bob really accelerates a lot of this stuff, and it's great.
Very good. And I see one last question coming in. We do have 6 minutes, so if anyone else in the audience has questions, please send them over. But James, this is up your alley. Why would I use DMN to define my decisions instead of DRL or Excel decision table?
Yeah, it's a great question. We see a lot of the MOE customers, old Red Hat Decision Manager customers, who have a big investment in DRL and a big investment in the old DRL Excel tables, and want to know why they should move to DMN. And the reality is that what DMN does is a couple of things. First of all, it provides you with this very visual notation, a visual blueprint that's dramatically easier to review with business owners. DRL and all the sort of technical curlicues of DRL is very much aimed at programmers, people who are used to writing programming code, and it can be hard to review that with business users. So you still end up with an impedance. You end up with a document from the business and code from IT that somehow have to be sort of reconciled. And the great thing about DMN is you don't have that problem. You create one model that the business can review and say, yes, that's how we make this decision. Those are the sub-decisions. That's the data we use. That's how we think about this decision. And it's the same thing that executes. So you dramatically crash that impedance between the two. And that's a very powerful thing. The other thing we have found is that you get a lot more reuse with DMN than any other sort of rules-based approach we've ever taken. The models are quicker to build, and it's much easier to see, oh, this sub-decision or this sub-decision should be the same between these three lines of business. We just did this with a commercial insurer. They've got all these independent lines of business. And as we built the second decision model for the second line of business, it became apparent that there was this whole essentially library of sub-decisions that we could reuse in DMN. And that thought process of how do I reuse things across my lines of business, across my channels, is much, much easier when the representation of these things is in DMN. And then lastly, just for the Excel table folks, our experience with those Excel tables is they are denormalized. And DMN really helps you think through the normalization process so that one business change is one rule change. And you don't have to say, where are all the places I have to make this rule change? You just have one place, you go there, you make the change, and the DMN model manages that for you. So 3 big reasons for using DMN.
Perfect. And thank you, Jared. I see you just answered Jessica's question. Yeah, we've got sales and technical folks scattered throughout the U.S., so we can help anywhere you're at. But Jared specifically, I think you're probably the closest to St. Louis. We put Jared in the middle of the country so he can go anywhere.
I mean, he's never actually in the middle of the country, to be fair. No. He's always like, yeah.
Okay. We've got just a couple of minutes left, folks. Any other questions, comments? Okay, you've got all of our contact information. Thanks for putting that up there, James. And I think these slides will be available as well. Truly appreciate the attendance, and feel free to reach out at any time with other questions, and we'll follow up straight away.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.